1, 2, 3.
Vinyl Fest presents the 1960s Groovy Palooza. It's our second concert event of the season. Now, this show celebrates the music from the 1960s, America's golden age of rock and roll, and includes everything from the Rolling Stones to Stevie Wonder to the Mamas and the Papas, and of course, the British invasion.
He's a real nowhere man, sitting in his nowhere land.
Vocal groups, costumes, black and white video clips, and your favorite songs. It's going to make for an unforgettable evening you won't want to miss. There will be a cash bar on premises as well. Mark your calendars for Flag Day, Saturday, June 14th at 7 p.m. The 1960s Groovy Palooza.
It's not unusual to be loved by anyone.
Click on the link on the show notes now to get your tickets reserved at the Bowman Fine Arts Center, presented by Vinyl Fest.
Hello, friends and neighbors. Welcome in the light, where laughter's the answer and hearts are shining bright. With calloused hands and wits, so raise your sharp. Let's praise a place where love ignites the spark. In the field of dreams, where sweat and hope combine, we'll raise our voices high and toast to the divine. Be your best and let your spirit always rise. Give thanks for every moment under sunny skies. Be the sunny side of someone else's life. Share your light and joy through struggle and strife. Keep your heart open and your soul always bright. Together we will share this sunny side life. Be the sunny side of someone else's life. Share your light and joy through struggle and strife. Keep your heart open and your soul always bright. Together we will share this sunny side life.
Hello, friends and neighbors, and welcome to Sunnyside. Well, commencement is upon us or over, depending on where you are, where you live, and when they do their high school commencements. We had ours this past weekend on Sunday, and once again got the opportunity to hand out some of the diplomas on stage with the graduating class of 2025, those seniors whom we've watched for much of their careers through high school and before that, through sports and activities, and obviously in the classroom. As a school board guy, that is probably the best part of the job, to be honest with you, is the ability to get up there on stage and to shake the hands of the kids coming across the stage as their names are announced, and some of their families are cheering, and just be able to present that diploma to them. What a cool thing to be able to do, and it's pretty sweet opportunity. And as school board president, that means my name is on all those diplomas. So, class of 2025, don't disappoint me. Go out and do great things wherever you are. And of course, the speeches and the insights from the students themselves during the ceremony are always fun to see and listen to, and it was just a great event. And congratulations to all those graduating from the class in the class of 2025. Go out, do great things, and remember where you came from, because your mom and dad love you. Not so much that they want to, well, they love you no matter what, but that doesn't mean they want you to live in their basement. But it does mean that they want you to come back home if you have the ability to do so. Go out. Get an education, learn career skills, become useful, work with your hands, help people out, and consider moving back to your hometown, particularly if it's a small town. We'd love to have you back in our small towns. We want our kids to come back home. The safest and best place to raise children and to serve your community in the small neighborhoods that would be a small neighborhood in a big city is actually what we think of as a city or a town here in the Midwest and across rural America. So I know for a long time there was a concept that the only way that our kids could ever potentially be successful is that they go to college, and that's not entirely true. Now, anybody can get a degree for the most part, and so that does kind of dilute the value of a bachelor's degree or certainly an associate's degree. It used to mean high school degree was that diploma was a big thing, and it still is. I'm not discounting the accomplishment and the achievement of making it through high school. But as Daniel Tosh says in one of his earlier specials, yes, I'm quoting Daniel Tosh, who says, high school, how'd you do it? High school is important, and our education system obviously demands quite a bit of our kids. But yeah, as long as you show up and you do your work, it doesn't even have to be particularly good. You're probably going to graduate from high school. And we've made it so easy to go to college that the college degrees just don't mean much. In fact, it has become like a driver's license in many ways. Perhaps you need a driver's license to get from point A to point B to legally drive a car, and perhaps you need a bachelor's degree anymore to allegedly get a new job. But they still don't know anything when they graduate from college and university. So lots of ways to go out and be successful. I'm not opposed to education. Obviously, I think it's great if that's what you're suited for. In other words, a college education immediately after you graduate from high school. Good for you. Go on and do that. But remember, kids, serve your communities. Serve your communities. That's just so important. Find a way to serve things other than yourself, I guess is my point. And obviously, the military is a way to do that, but there are myriad other ways to serve your community. Participate in your church. Get married and then have children. Do it that way. That's a good thing to do. And just, those conservative values that I love so much, that's good advice. We just don't hear as much anymore at commencement exercises. But what a wonderful experience regardless over the weekend. I hope you do go out and get trained. If you get an education, if you start working, learn from your superiors, the people around you, become useful, and find a way to, be a part of whatever community that you happen to be living in. Because I feel like that is truly a message that sometimes just doesn't get put out enough. How can I use the skills that God gave me and the abilities of my mind and body to help my neighbor, to be good in the field of which I'm employed for my employer, so that we can advance in those goals, whatever they happen to be, whether it's manufacturing or agricultural or professional, whatever it happens. Professional. The professional degrees. As an old lineman in football, it feels a little bit like when the skilled players call themselves skilled players, because they're skilled, certainly more skilled than a big dumb lineman who you need in order to, do your job as a skilled person. I've always taken a little bit of umbrage with that. And so professional careers are like skilled players in a way, aren't they? They're skilled, certainly more professional than the dude on the line or out in the tractor, whatever it happens to be. That's just a little blue collar umbrage right there, is what that is. But congratulations to all of the graduates. Go out, do great things, come back home, build a family, build a community within your community, serve your community, be a part of making, be the sunny side of somebody else's life, right? That's not the end of the show. I know that usually I say that at the end of the show. So that's my message to the grads, off the cuff there as I think about those things. It's going to be a little bit before we see another commencement in the Thompson family. We've got a couple more years before our last one heads out the door, and wish him well. We'll be going to state track this week once again, so congratulations to my youngest son, Colin, who achieved that mark in the high jump, and will be going to participate in the state track meet in Iowa, down in Des Moines later this week, which is phenomenal. So that makes him the fourth of four brothers to all make it to state track in some capacity. And so we're pretty proud of Colin, and he did it on his own and in a field event that his brothers, none of his other three brothers had done. So, and I think he's also an alternate in another event. So pretty excited for us, and we love going down to Des Moines to the Blue Oval at Drake Stadium to watch, I think, the best state track meet in the United States, having visited no other state track meet in any of the other states. Totally biased opinion. I feel like we've just got a fantastic venue, an announcer that is wonderful. It's not me. I can't think of the dude's name, but he is amazing. And it's a great place to go, as I've said in the past, to hear all of the small, unique names of towns and villages across this little state of Iowa with 3 million people in it, and to hear these names of these kids from these schools. And in Iowa, that's how you know where somebody is from. They'll say the name of their town, and it might be consolidated with another town, and you know them by the name of their school, the consolidated name. Now some of the schools that have consolidated have moved away from including the names of the towns which are consolidated, and so it gets a little more difficult to figure out where people are from. But for a lot of us that grew up in the state of Iowa, you know people by the name of the school from where they attend. So that's coming up this week. Looking forward to that. This past week and this week as well, although it's raining for at least the first half of this week, I'll be working and have been working on the garden bed situation that we've got here at Sunnyside. We can't do anything simple. We have to do everything a little complicated. We have to find a way here, and it's mostly me, but a little bit my wife Heidi. She's into it. She's in on the scheme with me. Everything that we do, we believe that we should do well with a practical purpose, but also with a sense of beauty and design. And so we do those things ourselves for the most part. And then we try to make our little center of the universe as beautiful as we possibly can. Now, the practical side of a raised garden, as you've probably watched on YouTube if you're interested in gardening, is knowing that those plants are raised off the ground a foot, 18 inches, 2-3 feet, whatever it happens to be, depending on the size of the container. And it takes quite a bit of dirt to fill these containers. Fortunately, we have a lot of dirt here, and we've been saving up dirt and composting and piling dirt with this in mind for the last 15 years. That's how far out we think of things. Well, let's pile the dirt over here because eventually we're going to use it in the garden. And now we have those raised gardens. We installed most of them last fall before the snow flew. And that included digging in and trenching in water lines, and I've talked about that before. Those have to now be, finished. I have to, cap them and put the little faucet on each one. And so I'm a plumber. A lot of in my own mind, I'll be doing some plumbing outside very shortly in this week. And so looking forward to that. Although right now, the only plants we have planted are potatoes, because you're supposed to plant those by Good Friday, and we did. And they are up and probably 8-10 inches tall already. And so we've got to get these other things planted. So we're looking forward to spending our Memorial Day weekend planting our raised garden. I still have 6 garden beds to put together, and I think that'll bring the total to, not bragging here, but it'll be 30 garden beds that are raised, and they're all arranged in a really cool pattern in a fairly large area. Take quite a bit of space, and little pathways that I still have to plant the grass in and around, and there'll be a little gazebo right in the center of it, so you can relax and listen to the plants grow while you sit out there and have a glass of wine, perhaps, as the sun sets in an Iowa summer. And so that is something that we are looking forward to completing. And when I say we, my wife's looking forward to seeing it completed. My mother-in-law is looking forward to seeing it completed. And I'm looking forward to it being completed, understanding that I am the one who is going to be doing most of the completing. And so I'm under the gun once again on a project I've set up for myself. But what a cool thing that we've got there. We got other plans for back there in the garden area, and continue to watch. Maybe I'll make videos of what we're going on. If you like the video, if you happen to see the video of our sheep shearing experience out at Heartland Hill last week, thanks for watching. That does apparently help with the algorithm, whatever that means. Isn't it weird that we live in a world where people are concerned about the algorithms of a social media network or YouTube or whatever that is, so that they can be noticed? I'm starting to think that maybe I should just get completely out of Facebook and Twitter and all of the social media stuff, because I'm not good at it. I don't do regular updates. I'm not particularly interested, and I'm irritated by the techniques that it takes to be successful in these self-serving elements of social media. And isn't social media just very self-serving? Even the pictures we take of ourselves are always the best moments in our lives, and those are the ones that get posted. And so if you were an alien, for whatever reason, looking at social media feeds, you would think that everybody on Earth has an amazing life, and they're always happy, except for the occasional friend who lashes out at someone without naming names, and nobody knows what they're talking about. Stop doing that, because either just say it, what you mean, or don't put these mystical statements out there that nobody understands. That still, too, is self-serving. If you have a cry for help, I'm not sure that your 1,700 friends on Facebook and their pithy comments, one by one as they see it, if they even see friends in their stream anymore, I'm not sure that that's the ones that'll help. Probably pick up the phone and ask for help. So a duck walks into a pharmacy and says, "Give me some chapstick," and put it on my bill. Anyway, then so what was I talking about? Oh, that was the garden stuff. Okay, and then I got on a social media rant. All right, so I have also bringing this up to speed here. A couple of other things. Over the weekend, I did have time to watch a documentary because it was only 30 minutes on ABBA. ABBA? How do you say that? The Swedish rock band from the 70s, 1974 to like say 1980, 81 in that time frame. Man, what a great group. And I know that there's probably some musical aficionados that are just like, they were terrible or whatever, but I don't think there's a single ABBA song that is out there that doesn't make you happy. And that was the problem. That was the problem with the press and the media, and certainly the Swedes, who apparently aren't happy with anything. They want that goth music and that punk music or whatever. I don't know what kind of music they have, but ABBA was just happy. It was just a good time, and it makes you happy. It makes you so happy, they made an entire movie and a musical. I don't know which came first, called Mamma Mia. And that was supposed to be the show here in town for the summer show for the Brick Street Theater, but I guess it's going back to the main stage on Broadway, and so when that happens, you lose rights. And so all those community theaters that were hoping to do Mamma Mia, including our own here in town, they lost their rights, and now they're going to do 9 to 5, which is, pretty good. That's Dolly Parton, and sort of the same idea. But I thought that the number one thing that I learned from this documentary on Netflix about ABBA, I don't know how to say it. I mean, to me, it's ABBA. But anyway, they were just 4 nice people. 2 beautiful women who were outstanding vocalists, and 2 incredibly talented musicians who were their husbands. And the media was not happy that they were so happy, and they weren't happy that their music was also happy. And so it eventually it did fall apart. And then the media was happy. Then the people were happy when they found a way to kind of ruin the lives and not the lives, but the relationships with these 4 people. And then they were happy. And then the critics liked them when they found a way to drive a wedge between them and to, just tire them out and to criticize them relentlessly. I still like the music of ABBA, and if you do too, you might want to watch that short Netflix documentary. It's less than an hour, I know that. I didn't have that much time to watch on ABBA, but because I already knew I liked the music, and so it was fun to watch them succeed, and their honesty and their talent, their raw, true talent, their beautiful voices, their fun music and lyrics and all of that, and it's a part of. I mean, they won the Euro, the European, whatever contest made them known internationally the year I was born. So it's not like I was like an ABBA fan as a teenager. I was a child, and it was probably playing on the radio. If it was playing on the radio, I'm sure I would have heard it. And I certainly have heard it ever since. And who doesn't like that music? I guess there are a lot of people who don't. But like I said one time about 20 years ago on a deployment, it wasn't really a deployment. It was what do you call that? I guess I was just assigned to a after 9/11 we were mobilized. I was a mobilization. And over lunch one time I told a kid, I said, there's 2 kinds of people in the world, those who like Neil Diamond and those who don't. And I kind of feel like that might be the case with ABBA. So there you go. On and on. Anyway, so that's what something you can occupy your time with if you've got about a half hour, 40 minutes, or whatever you want to learn about Swedish music that went worldwide. And isn't it interesting that they were accepted in places like Australia, and they were accepted in places like the United States, although by the time they got to the United States, it was kind of like the end of disco, and they weren't particularly disco to start off with, but then they decided to do a disco record at the worst possible time when the United States was revolting against disco. That was a thing. And so that, anyway, that all happened, and it seemed to me like the Australians and the Americans, they kind of liked it, and the Central Americans and the South Americans, they liked it, but Europe didn't like it, and who cares what Europe thinks? And that is still the case today. That's how this country was started, kind of how Australia was, started. They sent all their criminals down there. They don't care what Great Britain thinks, and so on and so forth. All right, friends, here's what we're going to talk about today. I had a visit on the lawnmower last week. I was mowing the lawn like you do in the spring, sometimes, certainly once a week, if not twice, because the grass really grows, and you got to keep it clean, as we've said before. I was out mowing the lawn, and a guy, comes walking down my road as I'm mowing. And I saw him from a long ways off because it's Iowa, and you can see a long ways here. And so I noticed that he was walking, and that's fine. Sometimes people do walk on our road, although fairly rarely. And so as I'm mowing, I'm watching him get closer and closer, and then in the back of your mind, you think, I wonder if this guy's going to come in here. Like, is he going to turn into my driveway? And sure enough, he did. He strolled on in. And he clearly intended to wave me down. So I went over and met with him. I sat on my riding lawnmower, which I was using to mow the lawn, as opposed to other uses for it, I guess. And what had happened was he had his tractor serviced, and his tractor, the people who had serviced the tractor apparently had left they'd left the cap, not the bottom, like the plug on the oil, but the top cap where you put the oil in, and somehow that oil just sprayed out. He was about 4 miles away from where he had started by the time his oil pressure dropped severely and the lights came on, and he had to pull over, and he stopped at every house along the way, and nobody was home, so that he could just simply make a phone call to the place that had serviced his vehicle. That is also where his vehicle was parked. His tractor was serviced there, and then he was driving the tractor back to his farm, which is west of my place a ways. And then they were not home, so he eventually gets to my place, and I'm out in the yard. And you can't deny that I'm there, So he explains what's going on, and I let him use my phone because his phone, I can't remember what happened to his phone. I don't know if his phone was, if he left it in the tractor or if it was in his car that he left, I don't know, at the place where they had serviced it. Anyway, he called them to let them know that something had happened and that he would need to be picked up, and that if they could find that cap, bring some oil, and this could all be resolved. So it was a fairly friendly situation, and we did get a hold of the business that had that situation, and they said that they would come out and pick him up. And then it got to be like 45 minutes, and no one, look, it's only 5 minutes outside of town, right? Maybe 10. And so nobody shows up. Now it's after 5 o'clock. They're gone. All you get is the answering machine. They did call. I don't know what they didn't leave a message, because they did call me back on my phone, but for whatever reason, my ringer was on, and anyway. And so for 45 minutes, we're talking to this guy. I'm talking to this guy, and we're talking about everything under the sun. Now, he's a very politically outspoken person, it turns out, and he's a Republican, and he's got a lot of thoughts on the world, and that was fine. I can hold my own there because I grew up as a Republican, and I'm a conservative, but as you know, I'm still registered as a libertarian for one reason or another, the most useless party in America. And so the conversation came up with this guy about who was going to run for governor in 2026 here in Iowa. And now I had just earlier this past week received a text, because I don't know who had the number before me. When I was about ready to retire from the Army National Guard, I got my, having a government phone for years, I got my own phone about 2 years before I retired. And so we're going on 6 years, right, that I've had this number. And I don't know who had the number before, but I know this. They didn't pay their bills, they don't talk to their grandma, and they were Democrat. And that is certainly not the situation with all Democrats, as far as I know. But yeah, so that's what I've learned from answering phone calls for the people who had the number before me. Little sip of coffee there. Now, interestingly enough, somehow, because of that situation, I'm on a list for Democrats. And so Rob Sand, who is the auditor for the state of Iowa and the only Democrat elected to a high executive office in the state of Iowa, has texted me and been texting me for quite a while. Actually, he's a fairly prolific texter apparently, and he's running for governor in 2026, and he has announced that he is running for governor. He's the auditor of the state of Iowa, and like I said, the only Democrat in that level of a state position. And so he finally, this past week, I'd gotten so many texts from him. I'm sure it wasn't him personally. It's whoever works for him in that capacity. And he said, I'm running for governor, blah, 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 on and on and on. And then he's like, and I'm a proud Democrat. And I just texted before I said, stop, like I'm done, enough. I'm not interested. I just said, I don't, proud of what? I don't get what you're proud of, but and then eventually stop, and then we're removed from the list. And now I haven't gotten another loving text or anything like that from Auditor Sand. And so I told this visitor of mine in my yard that, I had gotten a text from Rob Sand, and that he's going to run for governor. And, he's 42 years old. He's a younger guy, in my opinion, certainly younger than me. And he has a presence on social media. In fact, I don't know if he does any auditing, because he does spend a lot of time making videos of himself on social media, really getting his name out there, because he fully intended. He was going to run for governor back in, I think, 2022, I guess, in Iowa. It's every 4 years. He was going to run back in 2022 for governor, but he decided, no, I'm going to wait. I'm going to run for auditor and get elected again, which he did. And so since that time, in the last 2 or 3 years, he's pretty much just been running for governor from the auditor's office. And so it was no surprise that he was going to do this. Well, this didn't particularly impress my visitor, my friends, and my neighbor. I don't know. In the country, everybody's your neighbor. When you live out in the rural area, somebody can be 5 miles away. They're still your neighbor. And so he wasn't particularly impressed with that. But he also wasn't particularly impressed with the Republican who is probably going to run, or is going to run now for governor for the state of Iowa. And that's Randy Feenstra, who's currently the 4th District U.S. Congressman. And so here's a Republican who's standing in my yard who, to be honest, it was listening to his podcast. In the same way that I keep things moving, he kept things moving. And to get it a word in edgewise was fairly difficult. He was standing at the front of my mower. I had the mower shut off, obviously, and I'm sitting there talking to this guy thinking, I'm just going to wait for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then this guy will come and get picked up. And I don't know, it went on for 45 minutes. And finally, I just said, listen, do you want me to take you to town? Because obviously they're closed now, and maybe we can just you can go get your car and figure this out in the morning. And so he's, yeah, that'd be great. And so I did take him back into town and get him to where his car was and move on. More on that in a second. But anyway, he wasn't impressed with Congressman Feenstra. He sees Feenstra as a rhino, which, if you aren't familiar with Republican terms, rhino means a Republican in name only. That, by the way, is a designation that has changed over the course of the last 30 or 40 years. Like a rhino, when I was growing up, was somebody like a Rockefeller, right? Somebody, Nelson Rockefeller, who was was certainly a blue blood Republican and a vice president under Nixon and all these other things, and was not a they really didn't connect with the conservative base, whatever that was, in the 70s and 80s, the way that Reagan did. So when Reagan came in, there was this group of long-term, long-standing blue blood Eastern old money Republicans who like to do things a certain way, were willing to just maintain their breadth of power, whatever it happened to be, and didn't like to upset the apple cart, but also really didn't accomplish anything that was conservative. They were, I wouldn't say middle of the road. They had just used to being in power, and that's really all they cared about. And so, to me, that's what I think of when I think of rhinos. Now, 40 years later, a rhino is anybody that voted for Trump. A rhino is anybody that if someone voted for Trump and they don't think that that person is on the Trump train, that person is now a rhino. or something else. Neoconservative is something else. That neoconservatives were people that in the 70s, maybe in the 60s to some degree, who had been traditional Democrats and voted that way and decided that they didn't like the direction that the Democrat Party was taken even 30, 40 years ago. And so then they became Republicans, probably during the Reagan period, maybe a little bit before that, and decided that they were going to become Republican. But their values, some of their values were still, still sort of connected to an old-fashioned version of the Democrat Party, whatever that was, and also they were kind of recalcitrant on our stance in the world and different things like that. And I'm not explaining it very well, but so there's epithets that get thrown around in the Republican Party, and one of them is rhino, the other is neoconservative. The press picks up on it too. They don't necessarily say rhino. Actually, they usually celebrate a rhino, and so people will give that term to people that are also in the Republican Party and maybe have been there for a long time, and they're like, that person's not a real Republican. Not a real Republican because sometimes the person that is saying that became a Republican 8 years ago, and now they're the definition of Republican. And so that's the status of that situation. So I remember Feenstra, and when he was running for Congress the first time, I was in the Republican Party, and I wasn't. So he came to be, as far as the U.S. Congress is concerned, because Steve King had lost his committee assignments because he had said, "What's wrong with saying white nationalist?" And so people like Ben Shapiro, who have legitimate concerns, I suppose, with white nationalism or whatever, lobbied against him having those roles, and then eventually he was primaried in the Republican side, and there were 6-7 people that were throwing their hats in the ring. And this is back in 2021. Is that right? Somewhere in there, 2020, somewhere right around COVID. Yeah, it would be the election of 2020. And so he did win the primary. I wasn't for him. That wasn't my selection in the primary, but he did win that primary. And so since 2021, when he was sworn in, he beat the Democrat, J.D. Scholten, pretty easily in the general election by nearly 25 points. And then he joined the Congress, U.S. Congress in 2021. And he's a nice guy. I don't doubt that Randy Feenstra is a nice person, and he seems to be very true to his faith, and he seems to, which I appreciate. And he is kind of soft-spoken. He's not what I would consider a bold leader. He certainly isn't a showboat in any way in that regard, but kind of get the feeling that he knows who's his boss. And I don't think that it's necessarily the 4th district, Iowa's 4th congressional district. I think it's more like whatever Republicans are in charge, our own little rhinos that are in charge of the state Republican Party. And that was part of the reason in 2020, after the election, that I said, I'm out. And in 2021, I left the Republican Party, not because of Feenstra, but just because of the way that I saw the real power of the Republican Party, which I grew up in, was just being, it's just the same. It's the same people running, and they're just about maintaining their power and picking the people that they want that will do their bidding. And Randy seemed to me to be, of all of the other candidates in the primary, the one who was most likely to listen and do the bidding of his Republican higher puppet masters who are not elected. And I have no doubt that that's how it is in the Democrat side as well, and that is the world we live in. And that is what led me to thinking that we needed to have as many political parties as we have NFL professional team, NFL teams, 32, at least 32 parties, and then create that chaos and make people work together. And create caucuses that are temporary and so on and forth, and avoid the consolidation of caucuses. But am I saying caucuses plural correctly? Is it cockeye? Maybe. Anyway, so the situation now is in 26, we're going to have a little bit of Sand and Randy Feenstra's boot. Now, these people are all these two guys are running against. There will probably be other people that pop up that are going to want to run for governor. Our current governor, Kim Reynolds, is not going to run. She's done. I don't know what she's going to do. I hope they don't just switch, because she's not even from that district. So I'm not sure what Kim's plan is now that she's done being governor. But she became governor because she was Terry Branstad's lieutenant governor, and then he became ambassador to China in 2016 because he had a relationship with what's his name, Xing Xiaoping, whatever his name is, and because back in the 70s or whatever, 80s maybe, Xi came to Iowa in some capacity to look at American farms, the agricultural business. So he come to the breadbasket, he come to Iowa, and so they knew each other. He was a lower level CCP guy back then, and now he's in charge of China. And so I don't know if Trump thought that because of that relationship, that tiny relationship, that Terry Branstad would be a good ambassador to China. I don't think it went the way that Branstad wanted it to go, to be honest with you. And Branstad is from my hometown. So we've got a governor from right up here in the north central part of the state. But he then went and did that, and then Kim Reynolds became the governor, as you do when you're the lieutenant governor and you're not in the midst of a cycle. And then she did get elected on her own. I did the inauguration for Branstad and for that first episode, or the first inauguration of Kim Reynolds as the announcer or the sergeant of arms, which is kind of a cool job when you're in the National Guard and you get a chance to announce all of the people coming in, the Iowa Supreme Court, and then you name their names and whatever. And that was fun. And then you go to I announced the ball, the gubernatorial ball and all of that stuff, which was kind of fun as well. And you get to see that stuff, not because of political affiliation at the time, but just because of an assignment in the National Guard and having those speaking roles in that capacity. So anyway, so Kim Reynolds became governor. And I'll tell you this about Kim Reynolds. I don't know her very well, but I have met her in the governor's mansion as, just kind of a thank you for doing that announcing stuff. My wife and I, particularly with the Branstad inauguration, that was fun because, we were actually getting to know her. She loves Costco, and so do we. And so that was a fun conversation. She wasn't governor. She was lieutenant governor then. And my wife liked her because she had come from, Kim Reynolds had come from a state. She had served in the state house, but she had also before that been in the county courthouse where she was at, and had done some good things and was innovative in things that my wife cared about, which was like registering vehicles and so forth. And so that was a good conversation. She seemed like a normal person to me. And since that time, that hasn't changed too much. However, I think she's definitely come into her own, and she's got some strong opinions, particularly about public education, that has steered the supermajority Republican Party in Iowa, doing some things that I've already talked about on other shows. How I'm not particularly impressed with the way that they express their own version of government overreach, particularly over duly elected school boards across the state of Iowa. They just love to do that. And so now that she's not going to be governor, somebody else has to be. And so Randy is going to throw his hat in the ring. He's been out in Washington, D.C. since 2020. So he has been elected 3 times now. He would have to run either again for U.S. Congress in 2026, or he has now determined that he is actually going to run for governor. And so that has all started. And so he came from, now he doesn't seem to me, Feenstra doesn't, he's kind of been in state government for a long time. So there's nothing new here. He comes from the northwest corner of the state of Iowa, from a little town called Hull. He went to school at Western Christian High School. So he went to a private school back in the day, graduated in 1987. He's tall. He played basketball, and he went to Dordt University, which is a Dutch Reformed private school in, where is Dordt? Sioux Center. And so he went to Sioux Center and got his BA there. And then later on, he got a master's degree from Iowa State. And then I guess he's got a PhD in business from North Central University, wherever that is. And so, but he worked for a candy company in sales right after college or whatever. Then he went from a sales manager in the foreign candy company, which their big notable world contribution is they imported warheads, not like nuclear warheads, but the candy warheads into America. So there's that. But then he went from that to and I may not have every detail right, but he went from that to being a city administrator right there in the hometown of Hull. And so he did some insurance work too. I think he was maybe doing some insurance later or something like that. But he got to so he went to a city job, and this is, I don't know, early 2000s. And he was then he got elected as Sioux County treasurer in 2006. So that's another government job. And then he went to the Iowa Senate in 2008. So he had the Sioux County treasurer job for like 2 years. Then he got elected in a special election to the Iowa Senate. So he was an Iowa senator until 2020, I guess. So for quite a while. So while he was there in the Senate, he did work for an insurance company in Hull. But so when you work in the State House, you're there from January through at least April, sometimes into May. So there's 4 to 5 months, plus lots of whistle stops throughout the year and visiting with constituents that you get to do. So I don't know how valuable anybody is in the Iowa State House that actually is working, and those are with scare quotes, for a company. I guess the other 8 months, maybe they're working. I don't know what they're doing. But that's it's a different kind of formula. So he's been in the Iowa Senate since 2020 when he got elected to be in the U.S. House, defeating Steve King in the primary and Skolton, whatever his name was, J.D. Skolton, the Democrat who was running against him. So the thing about Randy is that he has never actually really, besides the race with J.D. Skolton, and then he did Skolton, and then he had probably somebody that a Democrat that ran against him the last couple of times. Prior to that, he had run unopposed in his area for Senate in the northwestern corner of the state, whatever district that was, right? So he ran unopposed. So nobody's running against him. But if you're familiar with the state of Iowa, the northwestern corner is very, very red. So running against is a waste of money if you're a Democrat or a Libertarian or whatever. And so he had never had any opposition. And then he got to, when you go to Des Moines and you've been there for 10 years, you get to know all the people that are the power players, if that's the right word for people in Des Moines. And they decided that he was their man. And so he did defeat King with the help, obviously, of his constituency in that northwest corner. King was also from the northwest corner of the state, so he did overcome him in both the primary, obviously in the primary, and then he did win in 2020. And since that time, there really hasn't been a ton of competition. Like, he did defeat Skolton by a large margin, and on and on and on. So I wouldn't say that Feenstra is anywhere near an outsider. He's been in government since the early 2000s. And whether it's at the city level, the county level, in the state Senate, or in the U.S. Congress, and doesn't really stand out in any way. Other than the fact that he will vote, I do believe he does vote with his conservative Christian heart. If you're Dutch Reformed, you are I'm not saying he's Dutch. I don't even know what church he goes. I'm guessing, but they're very conservative. And so if that's the case, then that would prove why in 2022 he voted against the Respect for Marriage Act, which would have codified the same-sex marriages into law nationally. He was the only representative from Iowa's congressional delegation to do so, and they're all Republican. So I think they're pretty sure they're all Republican. So everybody else voted for it, and Feenstra said, "No, that's not what our church does." And so I actually would say, I understand where he's coming from in that regard. If he's voting his faith and the people expect that you to do that, then that's what he did. Sometimes you can separate secular and faith, and maybe that's what the other 4 or 5 people did in the delegation, but that is not what that's not what Randy did. So that would be about the only way that he really stands out. He did vote to repeal the authorization for use of military force against Iraq resolution, which was from 2002. He did that in 21, one of 49 House Republicans to do that. And then, he's got some committee. He's on a agriculture committee, Ways and Means committee. And, he's, obviously, whatever. So he's married. They got 4 kids. Nice guy. He is very nice, but not, he's not standing out, in a conversation or at a party, other than the fact that he's very tall. On the other hand, Rob Sand is going to find a way to stand out, because that's pretty much what Rob Sand does. He claims to be now he's a guy from Decorah. He's a lot younger. He's 42. I think, and he comes from Decorah, Iowa, and he says on his website that this is home to some of the best pizza in the state. And I know what he's talking about. He's talking about Mabe's Pizza, which actually is a great place. If you're ever in Decorah, it's a beautiful town, and Mabe's Pizza is certainly excellent pizza. His dad was a doctor, and his mom was a physical therapist. So they were very poor in Winneshiek County. And Winneshiek County is a lot of Norwegians up there. That's where his family comes from. So he's got long family history in Winneshiek County, up in that corner of the state. It's beautiful in Winneshiek County, right next to Almaquee County. The northeast corner of the state is beautiful, very hilly. Just a wonderful, wonderful place. It's the home of Luther College, which is one of the most conservative schools in the. I'm just kidding. It's not. Luther's not conservative at all, and so neither is Decorah. And so he's got a mom and dad who are also not poor, and he grew up in Decorah and this charmed life. And so he's been a Democrat his whole life. When he was a kid, he was very active, even in high school, of being political, and got involved with trying to get a skate park installed in Decorah in the early 2000s. I think he graduated from high school in like 2001, 2002, somewhere in there. And since that, then he went off to college, and he went to, again, a very conservative school known as Brown University, where another sip of coffee, please. So he's not a conservative. All right. So he goes to Brown University, takes some time off to do some male modeling in Italy. Well, that's cool, man. I mean, if you can do that, that's cool. And so he did that in college for, I don't know, a semester or two, and then he came back, graduated from Brown University, and then he went on and returned to Iowa and went to law school at the University of Iowa, and from there worked on, just pretty much went straight into working for politicians. And he did do some clerking, or I don't know what you call it, interning out in Washington, D.C. for Tom Harkin when he was still in the Senate. And so I'll just tell you real quick, having experience with this, again, poor kids don't go to be interns for senators in Washington, D.C. Because it costs money. They go there full free, get paid zero, work in the office of the whatever U.S. senator that they're working with. They have strange hours, crazy hours, and they're not getting paid. And then they have to live in Washington, D.C., which is expensive. So mommy and daddy, more than likely, are paying for their precious baby to go. I know this because we did the same thing, except we did it with Grassley. And it was a summer, and it was great, and certainly instigated our oldest to become, I think, an attorney to some degree. He really enjoyed that activity, and so we're glad we did it. And he had a great experience. But make no mistake, like you're paying for that. The family is paying for you to go be an intern for a U.S. senator or whatever. And so he did that for a while too. And I'm sure that, again, building his conservative middle ground roots and representing Iowans as he imagined them from Decorah and Brown University and the University of Iowa Law. And so he went on then to work with various campaigns that were not successful. Like you do when you have a bleeding heart and you're true to a cause. And pretty much that's what he did. And he did it so well that he got noticed by the Iowa Attorney General at the time, Tom Miller. And so then Tom hired him to be a deputy attorney general or assistant Iowa attorney general. Like, that was the start of his career, but I think it was like pretty much the only career he had besides working for failed Democrat campaigns in a fairly red state. And so we had a Democrat attorney general for a long time, Tom Miller. And so Rob went and worked for Tom Miller. And they did all kind of, if you read the hype, they did do some interesting things. Interesting to the point where I think that one of the biggest things he was a part of, Rob Sand, would be uncovering a scam in the lottery, and that resulted in some bust. The guy went away for 25 years, and there were some some nefarious things going on with the lottery system and around the country, and so he helped prosecute that, and that was perfect for him because he was able to write a book called The Winning Ticket, explaining really, his amazing work in bringing down this lotto crime situation, which is good. I think that those type of prosecutions are good. He, prosecuted like every prosecutor's office, starting with the attorney general's office. Looking up scammers, tax abusers, thieves, violent criminals, sexual predators, so on and so forth. And that's what we expect the attorney general to do that. And so he was in that office as a young attorney, and that was probably his first real job. And then when they won this enormous suit against the lottery, then he decided it was time for him to run for office, just in time for him to write a book about it, and then run for office, which he did. He ran for office to be the state auditor back in 2018, and he beat a sitting Republican who was in that spot. So he became the first one to be a Democrat state auditor in Iowa since the 1960s. And then he won again 4 years later in 2022, and he was the only Democrat reelected statewide. But like I said, he had considered running for governor in 2022, but he knew he would get his butt kicked by Kim Reynolds, who just has an iron fist grip on the state of Iowa with a supermajority in the House and Senate. And so he's like, meh. I don't know if he knew in 2022 that she had heard whispers that she was going to do something else. I don't know, but he decided, no, I'll just run for state auditor. Nobody knows what they do, and I'm an incumbent, so I'll keep doing that. And so he did. And so since that time, the auditor's office is supposed to root out waste, fraud, abuse, hold both parties accountable. He created something called PI, which is the Public Innovations and Efficiencies Program. And so you're looking for ways that government funds are being used efficiently. I'm not saying like Doge-like, but they're awarding state monies to people who are government entities that are doing things economically and fiscally responsible. He's also spent a lot of time chasing after Governor Reynolds and making sure that she knows that he's watching every penny that she spends, which is fine. It's a good thing. I think the auditor should do that. But I mean, it's pretty clear he wants to be governor. And so there has been a number of things that he has brought up against the governor of the state of Iowa in this little playground, elementary school playground battle between the old Kim Reynolds and the young male fashion model from Brown University out of Decorah, about keeping people honest. Mostly just about keeping Kim on her toes is probably what it mostly revolves around. I'm not saying that they can't be audited. They definitely should be. I'm not making a defense for Kim Reynolds either, but make no mistake. I mean, this dude wants to be governor bad. He's never wanted to do anything but be as high as he can go in political office since he was in high school. And so that is his thing. And maybe that's the same thing with Feenstra. So he's got some things going for him. Rob Sand does. He's young. He's got a social media presence. He is energetic. He is verbose. So he's kind of fun to listen to. Like if you listen, you might think that you might get pulled into thinking this guy really does give a damn about me. And I don't think that's true at all. I don't think any politician does. So that's going to make it difficult for Randy, whose prior experience with, a couple of, I wouldn't even give it his congressional. I don't want to discount what it takes to get reelected or elected to a federal level office. But prior to that, Randy had run unopposed. And Randy has run out of a district that is supremely red. In the congressional district, and he's just going to win for being alive and a Republican. And he doesn't have to have an exuberant personality, and he doesn't have to have quips and measures that are interesting and fit into the social media storyline credit. Rob Sand does, and he understands how to work those things. And so whereas Randy Feenstra's got the machine of whatever the Iowa Republican Party is and whoever those people are, and obviously has been out in Washington, D.C. now this will be his third term. This is his third term. He's got connections out there, and he's certainly made headway. You can't help but do that when you're in federal office, because when you're in the U.S. Congress, all they do is make you go around and fundraise for the first who never knows how many months or years of your career as a representative to your folks back home in whatever state you come from. So he's definitely connected in the money machine on the Republican side. Republicans don't want to lose a governorship to a Democrat, so they're going to spend some money on that. Iowa is a red state currently. However, Iowa does their governor elections. The gubernatorial elections occur on off presidential cycle years. So this will happen in 2026. The other thing that happens in 2026 is congressional elections in a lame duck presidency of Donald Trump, who is currently not where he should be financially with the country. And that's kind of what people were hoping for. Doing great on the border, all that other stuff. We've talked about Donald Trump. So 2026 could come along, and it will come along. God willing, 2026 will come along next year, and Iowans may not vote for all of their Republican people anymore. The Southeast District, the Congress, U.S. Congress Congressional District, that was once again just votes, like single digit or double digit votes, and before that could even be settled, this last election cycle. So will that be maintained in 2026? You could say that could get lost, and the 4th district will not be lost to a Democrat. It will go to a Republican, because that will probably never change in the northwest corner of the state of Iowa. But you could lose that southeast corner pretty easily. And then you could lose, depending on who shows up to vote, the governorship to a Democrat, a la Chet Culver. Good Lord. And again, not a great option. But Rob is going to bring it, and he is going to do a good job, and he's going to be way more thrilling and entertaining than Randy Feenstra. I can tell you that. but Randy is the guy for the Republicans because he's got the investments. So does Rob, by the way. He may only be a state auditor, whatever that is, but he is fully backed by Act Blue, which is, of course, that is the Democratic Party's Political Action Committee, Act Blue. And they've been around for 21 years now, since 2004. They've raised $16 billion in that time to support Democrat elections for candidates throughout the country. And so if you were going to go join Rob Sand's campaign, you'd be giving your money to Act Blue. And perhaps the Win Red, which is the Republican late to the game version of that, which was created in 2019 to oppose Act Blue, maybe that's what Feenstra is using. I don't know. I don't intend to give my money to, obviously, either one of these candidates. I don't get the Republican texts because this number before it was mine was registered to a Democrat, apparently. And now I don't get Rob Sand's text, and I don't get Feenstra's text because, like I said, he thinks I'm a Democrat, and they don't ever pay attention to libertarians, and I'm not a very good libertarian. I've already said that anyway. So at the end of this visitation with my visitor, my lawnmower visit that day this week, I take this guy back to town, and he's like, in my conversation, even listening to my podcast, you probably pick up on I'm a conservative person. And not pleased with the Republican Party, not pleased with Democrats, not pleased with the Libertarians, just generally not pleased. But I got a good attitude on life. I'm like, they don't wreck my life. They're just people seeking power in their own way. And maybe some of them actually want to be helpful. But this conversation goes on. I'm taking him to town, and I said, listen, I should probably tell you, I'm not a Republican. I'm conservative, but I switched to the Libertarian Party like in 2021. And he was like, oh, I mean, I guess if you're for trans and the kids and all that stuff. And I'm like, what do you think a libertarian is? And it just rolls over him. Like he's got it in his brain what that means. I don't know if he thought that it meant liberal or whatever he thought. But I drop him off and he gets out of my truck, and he's a shorter guy, so it's a bit of a jump for him. And he's got the door holding open. I'm saying, hey, thanks for the ride. I really appreciate it. And just think about all those trans and the kids and things like that. And I'm like, that's not what libertarians do, at least not me. Anyway, so on, and off he goes into his car, and I never see him again. But so there you go. That's how that I was like, who's running for governor? Maybe more people than that. My guess is it's going to be Rob Sand is going to be the Democrat nominee. I don't know if they're going to primary anybody better than him. He's held the office, but make no mistake, that's all he's done his whole life. Like this guy is 100% dedicated to being the governor, and that won't last either. If he can be elected to governor, he's going to want to go as high as he can, because that's the kind of person that I believe that he is. And that's fine, but that's not my kind of guy. And I don't have much in common with the current Democrat Party platform. So there's going to be that situation. Feenstra, on the other hand, is really going to have to up his game. Or Iowa Republicans, why don't you find a real governor from the Republican Party that isn't what you think a rhino is, or whatever it happens to be, that isn't Randy Feenstra? Because Governor Feenstra sounds like a really not a great name, in my opinion. Governor Sand, I mean, I don't know if I like that either. Certainly not on the political side. But Feenstra, I don't think you should do that. You're not going to lose the 4th district, so I guess you can take the risk and go with him. But I'm going to tell you, Randy isn't going to appeal to Des Moines, Iowa City, Cedar Rapids, the big blue portions of the state. He's not going to win the northeast corner, and he's going to keep the northwest corner. That's great, but you're falling in population out there. So it's something to think about. Maybe there's somebody else. Maybe there's another potential governor of the state of Iowa who can have conservative values, who can match the quips of Rob Sand and the social media presence that's necessary to do so, to defend the principles of whatever conservative principles you have left. And maybe you'll be able to have somebody who will seem like they are for public education, who didn't get his high school diploma from a private school. Till next week, friends. I hope you have a great week and be the sunny side of someone else's life.
When the shadows fall and doubts begin to creep, remember together we're strong, never weak. Lift your neighbor up with kindness every day. Let your actions speak the words you want to say.
The Sunny Side of Life is a weekly production about our life on the family farmstead here in Iowa, the liberties we prize, and the pursuits which make us happy. None of this is possible, of course, without Christ in our lives. For the Lord God is our sun and our shield. He gives us grace and glory.
Be the sunny side of someone else's life. Share your light and joy through struggle and strife. Keep your heart open and your soul always bright. Together we will share this sunny side life. Be the sunny side of someone else's life. Share your light and joy through struggle and strife. Keep your heart open and your soul always bright. Together we will share this sunny side life.
May the Lord bless you and keep you, and may the sunny side of your life in Christ be made evident unto you each and every day, and give you peace.